There are seasons in life when you begin to feel like you are being deleted. Not dramatically, but gradually. A quiet erasure. You're still here. You're still functioning. You're still producing. Still speaking. Still smiling when required. But something underneath feels like it's fading. I need to say something honestly before we begin today. I feel very much like this right now, in almost every aspect of my life. Like I am disappearing. Like I am being erased. Like something that once mattered has been quietly archived. And it hurts. Welcome back to Hope is Kindled. Today, we are talking about The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. It is a dark book, but it is not hopeless, and neither are we. Published in 1963, just weeks before Plath's death, The Bell Jar arrived in a world that did not yet have language for depression the way we do now. There was no Instagram burnout, no public discourse on anxiety, no corporate conversations about mental health, no cultural permission to say, I am not okay. Women especially were told, be brilliant, be beautiful, be agreeable, be grateful. The American dream was glossy, but it was suffocating. And suffocation does not always look like panic. Sometimes it looks like paralysis. Esther Greenwood is brilliant. She wins a prestigious internship in New York City. She has talent, promise, opportunity. From the outside, she is ascending. Inside, she is unraveling. She begins to feel as though she is trapped beneath a bell jar, a glass container that distorts air and isolates what is inside. The world continues. But she cannot breathe. She cannot choose. She cannot imagine her future. She cannot connect to joy. The famous fig tree metaphor in the novel captures this perfectly. Esther imagines her life as a tree filled with figs, each fig representing a different future. Marriage, career, travel, art, love, independence. But she cannot choose. So she sits, and the figs rot and fall. That is the psychology of overwhelm, of perfectionism, of feeling like if you choose wrong, you disappear. Does that sound familiar? It does to me. Plath does not romanticize depression. She anatomizes it. Depression in this novel is indecision, numbness, self-alienation, exhaustion, the inability to envision tomorrow. It is not simply sadness. It is a disconnection from self. And the most painful part is the belief that no one notices, or worse, that no one cares. When you begin to feel erased, you question your value. You begin to wonder, was I ever really here? Sylvia Plath herself was extraordinarily accomplished, a gifted poet, a top student, ambitious and disciplined. And yet she struggled deeply with mental illness. She experienced electroconvulsive therapy, hospitalization, isolation. The Bell Jar is semi-autobiographical. It is not a plea for pity. It is documentation. It is her saying,
this is what it feels like when your mind turns against you.
There is courage in that. Naming darkness is an act of resistance. It isn't hard to find threads of other works and important literary figures that borrow from or emulate Plath. At first glance, Sylvia Plath and Tony Robbins could not be more different. Plath gives us a voice that is quiet, suffocating, interior. Robbins gives us a voice that is forceful, expansive, directive. But both are concerned with the same psychological question. What happens when a person feels powerless? In The Bell Jar, Esther Greenwood feels trapped inside an identity she did not consciously choose.
I felt very still and very empty, the way the eye of a tornado must feel, moving dully along in the middle of the surrounding hullabaloo.
This is not laziness. This is dissociation. The world moves. She does not. Now consider Robin's insistence.
I'm not passive. I'm taking charge. If you aim at nothing, you will hit nothing. The past does not equal the future unless you live there.
Where Esther feels pulled by invisible currents, Robin's demands deliberate direction. Here is the tension. Plath shows us what helplessness feels like. Robin's shows us how helplessness might be interrupted. Esther embodies what Robins calls the 3 Ps. Permanent, this will never change. Pervasive, everything feels meaningless. Personal, something is wrong with me. Plath writes,
I saw my life branching out before me like the green fig tree in the story.
and then,
I saw myself sitting in the crotch of this fig tree, starving to death, just because I couldn't make up my mind.
this is decision paralysis, not lack of intelligence, but fear of irreversible identity. Robins would reframe. Choose one fig. Act. Adjust later. Carol Dweck, who wrote Mindset, would say, identity grows through effort, not certainty. Ruiz, who authored the 4 Agreements, would say, do your best with the fig you choose. Hope, in Robin's world, is motion. Hope, in Plath's world, is breath. The bell jar metaphor itself represents cognitive enclosure.
Wherever I sat, I would be sitting under the same glass bell jar, stewing in my own sour air.
This is the fixed narrative loop. Robbins insists.
It's the thoughts that are stressful that you believe that mess you up.
Plath shows us what happens when those thoughts are not questioned. The bell jar is not reality. It is perception thickened into certainty. The Robbins counterpoint is not.
Just think positive.
It is. Interrupt the pattern. Move your body. Shift your focus. Challenge the belief. Take one action. Plath shows us the weight. Robbins offers leverage. Esther's invisibility echoes so many others. Greater Samsa, in the Metamorphosis, wakes up transformed into something unrecognizable and becomes a burden. Winston Smith, in 1984, is erased by the machinery of the state. The creature in Frankenstein longs to be seen and loved, but is rejected. But Esther's erasure is quieter. She is erased by expectation, by comparison, by pressure, by silence, by the inability to articulate what is wrong. And that may be the most modern erasure of all. If Silas Marner is a story about quiet reintegration into life, The Bell Jar is a story about the terrifying experience of suffocation within it. Sylvia Plath's Esther Greenwood describes depression as living under a glass dome, airless, distorted, sealed off.
To the person in the bell jar, the world itself is the bad dream.
Compare this to Eliot's description of Silas in Ravelo. He withdraws from the community. He loses faith. He replaces relationships with gold. He becomes mechanical, insect-like, repetitive, isolated. Both characters are not merely sad. They are sealed off. Esther is psychologically sealed. Silas is socially and spiritually sealed. The metaphor differs. The condition is similar. In the bell jar, Esther loses her narrative coherence. She cannot decide who she is. She cannot choose a future. She sees possibilities as paralyzing rather than empowering. In Silas Marner, Silas loses communal coherence. His past religious community collapses. His identity is stripped. His faith structure dissolves. Both characters experience loss of orientation, collapse of shared meaning, identity destabilization, withdrawal. The difference lies in the direction they move next. Esther's descent is inward and collapsing. Silas's withdrawal is defensive and numbing. And, as we pointed out earlier, Esther says,
I felt very still and very empty.
Silas is described as moving mechanically at his loom, hoarding coins, shrinking into habit. Both lose relational connection. Both become trapped in repetition. The bell jar. The loom. Different metaphors. Same enclosure. Here is the most significant divergence. Esther struggles in a world that misunderstands her suffering. Even treatment feels impersonal and alienating. Silas, though initially isolated, eventually encounters a community Dolly Winthrop, Epi, who gently reintegrate him. The critical question becomes, is healing solitary or relational? Eliot argues, healing is relational. Plath leaves it unresolved. Healing is possible, but fragile. The bell jar may lift. It may descend again. In Silas Marner, hope is concrete. Silas opens the door. He adopts Epi. He re-enters communal life. He testifies to his changed understanding of faith. Redemption is steady. In the bell jar, hope is more tentative. Esther enters the hospital interview room at the end of the novel. The door opens, but we do not know what lies beyond it. The hope is conditional, uncertain, human. That ambiguity matters, because not all healing is symmetrical. Not all arcs are resolved. Not all bell jars shatter cleanly. Silas regains agency through care. This is something I have experienced through parenting my own boys. They have truly saved me in more ways than I can say. Esther, however, struggles to regain agency through treatment and self-awareness. Silas rebuilds through contribution. Esther searches for a future that feels authentically hers. Silas's suffering is rooted in betrayal. Esther's suffering is rooted in identity fragmentation and cultural pressure. Yet both reveal something essential. Meaning cannot survive isolation. Why place these works side by side? Because they show two truths about despair. First, despair narrows perception. And second, despair isolates the self from the world. But they also show two forms of hope. In Silas Marner, hope grows through relationship. In the bell jar, hope flickers through survival and the possibility of re-entry. One says, quiet repair counts. The other says, even surviving counts. That matters deeply, because sometimes we are Silas. Sometimes we are Esther. Sometimes we are somewhere between. If you have ever felt mechanically going through motions, sealed off from others, unsure who you are becoming, afraid the air has thinned, then both of these works speak to you. Silas says, you can come back into relationship. Esther says, even naming the suffocation is an act of clarity. Hope survives in different forms. Sometimes it is a child at the door. Sometimes it is a door at the hospital. But it is still a door. I need to be honest here. I read Sylvia Plath in college, and I wasn't ready for her. I always recognized her impact on the world and world literature, but she wasn't really for me. There are moments lately when I feel like I am under that bell jar, like I am still moving. But no one is really seeing. Like dreams I worked toward for years have hit a wall. Like effort is invisible. Like I am somehow optional. And that hurts more than failure. Failure, at least, means you tried. Erasure feels like you never mattered. But here's the truth depression whispers, and we must resist. The bell jar distorts reality. It magnifies isolation. It shrinks connection. It tells you that you are alone. That whisper is not truth. It is pressure. The bell jar confronts suicidal ideation, institutionalization, despair. It does not give us a triumphant ending. It gives us something more fragile. Esther survives. The bell jar lifts. not permanently, not magically, but enough. Enough to breathe, enough to continue. So, where is the hope? Hope in the bell jar is not fireworks. It is breath. It is treatment. It is re-entry. It is the possibility that this state is not permanent. And that matters. Because when you feel erased, permanence is the lie that terrifies you most. The lie says, this is who you are now. The truth says, this is a season. The deeper hope is this. The book exists. Plath wrote it. Someone else felt this, and articulated it, and survived long enough to tell the story. That means you are not alone in this state. And if someone else survived the lifting of the jar, so can you. If you are listening and feel erased, if you feel like your work doesn't matter anymore, if you feel like your presence is optional, if you feel like you are being quietly deleted, you are not. You are in a distorted atmosphere. The bell jar is not the world. It is a temporary enclosure. Air returns. Perspective returns. Meaning returns. Sometimes slowly. Sometimes painfully. But it returns. And here is something I will say to myself as much as to you. You are still here. You are still creating. You are still searching for light. And that alone means the bell jar has cracks. And cracks let air in. Good journey.